Welcome to Sound Vision's Islaminar, how an individual can benefit from the U.S. stimulus package. Sound Vision has been bringing leading quality content for almost 3 decades to the North American Muslims and has now become a pioneer in professional development trainings. In these uncertain times, when we are housebound, we cannot stop learning nor moving forward. And Sound Vision's team has been working long hours to adapt all of our trainings to an online portal. I am Sadiq bin Abdullah, your moderator for this webinar. And I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank our generous donors, our generous donation to our webinars by WIT, which is an IT solutions company with offices in Michigan, Ohio, and Toronto. Before I introduce our presenters for today, I would like to point out a few housekeeping rules so we may have a streamlined experience, inshallah. First off, at all times, please, during the webinar, please keep yourselves on mute so we can have an uninterrupted session. And number 2, you can use the chat box that will pop up on your right-hand side of the screen if you press the chat button at the bottom of your screen. I will take all of your questions and we can get them answered at the end of each session. Now I would like to introduce our first presenter. His name is Thabraize Ahmed. Thabraize is currently the owner of CNA Financial and an accounting firm in Rolling Meadows, Illinois, which specializes in bookkeeping and payroll for small and medium businesses, including many nonprofits, Islamic schools, and masjids all over the United States. They also handle income tax preparation for individuals and businesses and nonprofits as well. So without further ado, thank you so much, Brother Thabraize, for joining us. Go ahead and please begin.
Thank you. Imam Abdul Malik, did you have any comments before I start?
Well, thank you so much, Thabraize, for coming, and Sadiq for being moderator today. I don't have any very serious comments, but a couple of thoughts. First thing is that God Almighty does not ask Muslim the most precious thing which we have, Quran, to write it down. But the God Almighty does ask us very categorically that financial transaction and dealings, write it down, have witnesses on that. So finances are something very important. At this time when we are worried about what is happening in the world, and 10 million people until a few days ago filed for unemployment, and they have difficulty because there is so much load while workers are not available. So I think we being organized, taking charge of ourselves and being very thorough, developing a budget, considering it, being prudent about that, I think is going to be very important for us. And in that sense, Brother Thabraize, who have been a member of our community, actually I consider him a supporter of Sound Vision and involved in our community, leading a good company himself, has spent good amount of his time, extra time, thinking about it. So guidelines which you are going to get are precious enough. You use them and it will be available to you, and you can share with other people the same information. One of the question which people are saying is about donations. There are a lot of problems which are going around. So at the end of this presentation and question answers, I will take 2-3 minutes for what you need to do to avoid getting taken advantage of by different people who are trying to rob. In general population, as specifically for Muslims, there are things going around in the Muslim community as well. And what is the wise way of, while you're planning, you plan for donation also. So I will take few minutes and maybe one screen to share with you. So please go ahead, Brother Thabraize. Thank you so much for coming on board.
Not a problem. All right, let me go ahead and share my presentation. Share screen. All right, assalamu alaikum, everyone. So as Sadak and Imam Malik have said, today's particular focus, and we've done these presentations, one earlier this week for non-for-profits and masajids in particular, and we did one last week for the businesses. Today, what we'd like to go ahead and do is focus on individuals, and in particular, I'm hoping we can kind of leave a lot of room for Q&A. So what I'd like to go ahead and focus is these. In the past 1 month, the government has passed 2 huge laws related to the coronavirus. One is the Families First Coronavirus Recovery Act, and one is the CARES Act, primarily for businesses, but there is a stimulus payment for individuals as well. For the Families First Act, I'll kind of talk to you as an individual, what does it mean for you, right? It's primarily for the businesses to get credits, but you as an employee, what can you go ahead and benefit from? Again, everything that I say here, again, because the tax laws are literally changing almost every single day when it comes to some of this stuff, it's not legal advice, it's not any tax advice. We always ask you to go ahead and consult your own accountant or attorney on anything related to these particular topics. So this Families First and Coronavirus Response Act, what is it, right? So basically, if you work for a company that has less than 50 employees, right, then there's a chance that your employer may not be required to follow this. But if you work for a company that has more than 51 employees up to 500, they are required to follow this Families First Act. And again, even if you work for a company with less than 50 employees, they may still be required to follow this act. So again, check with your employer. But what is this particular act that we're talking about? The Families First that was passed, right? So let's say you work for a company called ABC Company, right? So you as an employee are entitled to time off because the offices are closed or the schools are closed and you are taking care of a child at home. So your company is required to pay you a certain amount of your salary, your full salary if you're impacted by the virus. Again, God forbid if you're currently impacted by the virus or you have been told by a physician to stay home because you have symptoms of the virus, then your employer should be paying you your full salary, up to $511 a day for the first 10 days. If you're not able to work at home because your children are at home because the schools are closed, right? Then the government or your employer is required to pay you $200 a day, 2/3 of your salary, up to $200 a day, right? The good thing is, again, some of your employers may not know this, so you need to go ahead and tell your employers, if you're affected by this, you qualify for the sick leave, and the government will reimburse your employer 100% of what they pay you. So it's nothing coming out of their pocket at the end of the day, right? Now, it doesn't matter if you're a full-time employee or a part-time employee at the company that you work for, right? By law, if you have been affected by the virus, you're supposed to be getting your full salary for the first 10 days. That's first 2 weeks, right? After that, it's up to $200 a day. Or if you're just at home and you're not able to work at home, again, if you're at home and you're working from home, because a lot of us are working remotely, then you should be getting your normal salary, right? This doesn't impact you. This only impacts you if you have a child, son or daughter at home, and you're not able to work at home because you need to take care of your children, right? Then your employer has to pay you $200 a day and the government will reimburse your employer. Right? Again, this one effective as of April 1st. Again, it's just a diagram here. If you've been advised by your physician to stay at home because you have symptoms of the coronavirus, or if you've been diagnosed yourself, then if you say yes to this, then you are subject to 100% of your pay from your employer, up to $500 a day for 80 hours. If you're a part-time employee, then it's prorated based on the number of hours that you've worked at your employer over a certain period of time, right? But if you don't have the virus, alhamdulillah, that's a good thing, right? But if you're at home and you're not able to work and you're taking care of a spouse or another child, that's at home or that's been affected by the virus, then you get 2/3 of your salary, up to $200 a day. If none of those impact you, then this doesn't impact you, right? Just do your normal job at home and you should be fine, inshallah, right? What happens after 2 weeks, right? Because you're supposed to be in quarantine for 14 days. So 10 days, you get your full salary if you've been impacted. Beyond that, if you're still not able to work, then for 10 weeks, your employer should pay you up to $200 a day, right? If you've been impacted or you're at home taking care of a child, because the schools right now, again, for my children's school, they said that the earliest is going to be April 30th, right? So it may be May, but my gut is the schools aren't going to be open for the rest of the year, right? So if your schools are not open as well and you cannot go back to work because you have children at home that you need to take care of, then your employer has to continue paying you for another 10 weeks at $200 a day, and the government will reimburse your employer. So nothing comes out of your employer's pocket, right? That's just what I'm trying to go ahead and get across, because a lot of employees don't know what their rights are, nor the employers know that they have to pay their employees. And if they pay their employees, the government reimburses them, right? So that's the key. Now, in order to qualify for the additional 10 weeks, you have to have been working at your job for at least 30 days, right? If you haven't been working there for 30 days, then you only get the first 2 weeks and nothing beyond that, right? Again, so this is for your employers, right? They get 100% credit. That's all you need to know, right? And they are also required to pay for your health insurance, and they will get reimbursed whatever they pay for your health insurance costs as well. Again, the key here and the key takeaway from this Families First Act that I want you guys to know is if you are impacted by the virus and you are not able to work, then the government entitles you to continue getting paid by your employer, and the government will reimburse your employer 100% of what they pay you within the limits of the $200 for the first 2 weeks and then an additional 10 weeks, right? So in total, you can get up to $12,000 over 12 weeks of pay from your employer, and the government will reimburse your employer $12,000 as well. That's in a nutshell what the Families First Act is for you. What is this CARES Act, right? It stands for the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. A lot of it has to do with small businesses. We're only going to focus on the part that deals with the individuals, right? And the biggest thing for individuals is the rebate that the government has said, right? It's a stimulus payment, right? So you're supposed to be getting, we have no idea when the rebate's going to be coming, but the government said almost about 3 weeks ago that they're going to start sending it out. It is our understanding that it's going to happen after April 15th because they're waiting for people to go ahead. If people need to file their 2019 tax returns, they're waiting till the 2019 tax returns original deadline was. All right, so what is this rebate, right? What everyone's going to go ahead and get a certain sum of money if you qualify. You don't need to do anything special. You do not need to contact your accountant. Your accountant doesn't need to do anything special, right? You don't need to file, for the most part, anything special, right? So what is this credit, right? It is entitled to anyone that's an individual that has a valid social security number, right? It's a refundable credit on your 2020 tax return, right? So right now, all of us are preparing our 2019 tax return. This stimulus rebate and payment is a refundable credit that your accountants will calculate on your next year's tax return about a year from now, right? So what the government's sending out right now, it's just an advance payment of the credit that you're going to get next year on your tax returns. Right? This advance payment is not taxable income to you or any of your children, right? So what does it mean that it's an advance payment? So when you do your tax returns next year around March, April, right, you're going to file your 2020 tax return. The advance payment is going to be trued up, right? But it's going to be in the benefit of you. What does that mean, right? That means that right now, if you receive, let's say $800 out of the $1,200 because your income's high and you're a single person, and I'll go over those in a minute, right? Then when you do your 2020 tax return and your income drops and you qualify for the entire $1,200, then you get the additional $400 on your 2020 tax returns, right? So you get that extra benefit, right? If right now you get to $1,200 and your income goes up, or you get $2,400, right? And your income goes over the $150,000 limit, which I'll talk about in a second as married individuals, right? Next year or this year, 2020, you make, let's say, $200,000 and you don't get that credit, right? According to the limit. Then there is nothing right now that the government's saying that you don't have to pay any of it back. It doesn't become taxable on your 2020 tax return, right? You don't have to report it as income, nothing. You get to keep that money. So either way, if you get short paid now, you will get that extra money. If you get overpaid now, you don't have to return it. So how's it computed, right? First, what the IRS is going to do is they're going to look at your 2019's tax returns, right? That's why it is our assumption that that's why the government's going to wait till April 15th, because first they want to look at your 2019's tax returns. If you don't file your 2019's tax returns, because as you may know, the deadline's now been extended till July 15th, then the IRS is going to look at your 2018 tax returns, which should have already been filed by now, right? If, let's say, you didn't file your 2018 tax return because you're not required to file, right? All you get is Social Security benefits, right? So, which is non-taxable. Then the government is saying that they know how much Social Security you receive and they know you're not required to file a tax return. Then what they're saying is that they will automatically look at your Social Security benefits and send you your benefit. So again, you do not need to do anything. Now, you may say, hey, Thabraize, I don't get Social Security benefits, but I don't work and I don't file a tax return either. What do I do, right? Right now, the IRS is working on a very simplified form that they have not released out yet for people that don't get Social Security benefits and do not file a 2018 tax return or 2019 tax return, right? Because they have no income, but they still want this stimulus payment, then you will file that form, right? What is that form? It hasn't been out yet. The government's saying that they're going to release it on the IRS website and you just go online and fill it out. So who doesn't get this payment, right? So if you didn't file a 2018 or 2019 tax return, you're not going to get it, right? If you don't have Social Security benefits, you're not going to get it. That's why the government's saying, okay, if you qualify, then we're coming up with this streamlined form that you can go ahead and fill out and submit. It's not a tax return, it's strictly for the stimulus payment. Again, we don't know when it's coming out, but hopefully in the very near future. Now, if you're not a resident alien, meaning if you do not hold a green card, you're on a H-1 or you're on a visitor visa, you don't get this credit, meaning this rebate, right? If you, which majority of our children are. Can you guys still hear me? Imam Malik, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you well. You're coming out, there was slight distortion here and there because of, I think, internet quality, but we can hear you fine.
Okay, thank you. So if you've ever been claimed on someone else's tax return as a dependent, then you don't qualify, right? So a lot of my clients have children that they claim on their tax returns. The children don't get any additional payment as a child, as individual, right? Now, a lot of my clients are asking, hey, I have a 20-year-old, 22-year-old that's in college, right? They make their own money. They make a few $1,000s while working at college, right? They file their own tax return, but I still claim them, right? Do they get it because they file a tax return? No. Just because your child files a tax return doesn't mean he's going to get this rebate of $1,200 as a single person, right? If you claim your son or daughter, right, and they're over the age of 17, then unfortunately you don't get one for that particular child, right? Now, unless you or your child files a completely separate tax return and is not claimed as a dependent, then they may get this particular refund, right? You have to work with your accountant to figure out, is there even that option? Is it even beneficial? Because usually sometimes the parents have greater benefit by claiming the children's education expenses. It is our understanding that if you have an item number, you don't get it, right? You gotta have a valid social security number. If you're single, you get $1,200. If you file head of household, you get $1,200. If you file married filing separately for you and your spouse combined, right? And if you have any children under the age of 17, you get $500 for each child, right? So for example, I have 4 kids and I'm married. So I should receive $4,400 according to that math threshold of income limitation. So if your income, if you're single, you got to have a valid income, has to be between 75, less than 75, up to 100. If you make anything 100,000 or more, you don't get that rebate, right? Or if you're a head of household, you got to make less than 136,000. At 112, you'll get the full. If you make anything over 112 up to 136, it's going to be shorted, meaning they're going to go ahead and reduce the payment. After 137,000, you get 0. For married folks, again, if you make under 150, you get the entire 2,400. So for me, in order for me to get the entire 4,400, because I have 4 kids under the age of 17, I got to make less than 150, right? If I make less than 200, then I might get a small portion, right? But if I make over $200,000 a year, that's adjusted gross income, not your gross income. That's your adjusted gross income on your tax return, right? If I make over 200,000, I will not get anything. That's pretty much everything that I have about the rebate, right? And we'll go ahead and take questions here shortly, right? Now, this CARES Act also has a lot of changes to the retirement plans, right? So what are these changes that impact you as the individual, right? So basically right now, as you know, if you withdraw money out of a retirement plan, which is your IRA or your 401k, right? So today, if I withdrew money out of my 401k tax, I got to pay a penalty on whatever I withdraw. Right now, because of the coronavirus, this CARES Act penalty is waived on the distributions during the 2020 up to $100,000 that you pull out, right? As long as it's a coronavirus related distribution. So what is a coronavirus related distribution, right? First, you got to go ahead and withdraw it before December 31st, right? 2, if you've been directly impacted by the virus, or a family member of yours has been directly interacted with the virus, right? So if you were diagnosed with the COVID-19 coronavirus, you automatically qualify. Or if your spouse or your child or a dependent of yours gets diagnosed, then you qualify, right? Or you experience adverse financial consequences as a result of being quarantined, right? Or a lot of my clients have been furloughed, which is basically means you've been temporarily laid off, right? Or you've been permanently laid off, or your work hours have been reduced, right? I have a lot of clients that are telling their employees, hey, look, instead of working 5 days a week, you only work 3 days a week, or 2 days a week, 1 day a week, 4 days a week, right? If your hours have been reduced, then you qualify. So almost most people will qualify for the coronavirus related distribution, right? Right. So as long as you pull out less than $100,000 out of your 401k or your retirement plan, you don't have to pay the penalty. Not only that, right? But let's say you would draw $30,000, right? Normally, you'd have to pay the 10% penalty and pay the taxes on that entire $30,000 in the year that you would draw it, right? Now what they're saying is you can spread out that $30,000 over 3 years. So you can pay income tax of $10,000 this year, $10,000 next year, and $10,000 the following year, right? Which is huge. What else, right? You can also go ahead and take a distribution you can take a distribution from your retirement plan, your 401k or your IRAs, right? Normally, if you go ahead and take a distribution, right, you have to return it within 60 days to avoid paying tax on it, right? Now what they're saying is you can go ahead and take out a distribution and you can go ahead and return it within 3 years to avoid paying tax on it, right? That's huge. What else? Normally, if you work for an employer and you have a 401k, this is only for 401ks, right? You can take a loan against your 401k and pay back to your own 401k, right? You could borrow up to 50% of the balance or $50,000, right? Whichever one is greater. Now, the max that you can borrow is instead of $50,000 before, you can borrow up to $100,000 or 100% of your account balance, which is again, huge. RMD, those of us that are over the age of 70, you are required, if you're over the age of 70 and a half before 2019, you were required to take out a required minimum distribution, right? Earlier this year, because of the Jobs Act that was passed last year, they increased the age now to 72, right? So now if you're 73 years of age, you're required to have a RMD, right? Those that are 73 or 70s, they know what this is, right? Right now, for this year alone, there is no RMD required. Again, it's only for the calendar year 2020. If you were previously required to have a RMD, required minimum distribution out of your retirement account, you no longer need to do that just for this year. Next year, it goes back to your normal RMDs. Excuse me. IRA contributions, right? So as we all know, April 15th, which is coming up here in the next few days, was your normal tax deadline to file your tax return. And if you wanted to go ahead and make an IRA contribution, you had to deposit it before IRA April 15th. Now that the tax deadline has been extended to July 15th, you can deposit your traditional or your Roth IRA for the 2019 tax return up until July 15th, right? Which is huge, right? It gives you an extra 3 months to figure out, okay, can you deposit it or not? I have clients that were filing the tax returns, were taking the IRA deduction, were getting the refund, and now they have an extra 3 months to actually make that deposit. Other items, right? So that's everything related to the CARES Act, right? Now I kind of want to just touch base about other items that you as individuals may have been impacted with, right? Rent. Right now, the government said if for some reason you cannot pay your rent, your landlord cannot evict you for 90 days, right? So if you're having trouble paying your rent, contact your landlord and let them know, right? Say, hey, look, for whatever reason, I can't make my rent, right? And let's, again, hopefully it's a genuine reason, right? I'm a landlord. I don't want my tenants to call me just for the sake that they can go ahead and get an extension, right? If they truly have a genuine reason, then use it, right? Same thing with your utilities. A lot of the utility companies here in Chicago, at least, are saying, hey, look, if for some reason you can't pay your electric bill or your gas bill or your water bill, contact us, right? We'll give you time to go ahead and pay it. We will not cut off your utilities. Same thing with your mortgage companies, right? Mortgage companies, if you cannot pay your mortgage, right, they are giving you a deferment, right, and not charging you interest for 90 days. And they're just tacking it on at the end of your mortgage, right? Again, if you're able to pay, then continue paying by all means, right? That's right. What I'm trying to say is if you're not able to pay because of a hardship, because of the coronavirus, you've been temporarily laid off, right? Or your hours have been reduced, right? Contact your credit card company. They're waiving the credit card payments, they're waiving the interest, they're waiving the late payment fees, right? But you got to call them and let them know, right? Whoever it is that is being impacted, right? May it be your landlord, may it be your mortgage company, utility company, credit card company, right? Unless you call them, they're not going to know. Hey, they don't know Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid is facing a hardship, right? Unless he calls them and says, hey guys, I need some help, they'll say, not a problem, we'll help you, right? The other thing, right? Imam Abdul Malik touched on this earlier on, right when we were starting, right? Islam requires us to go ahead and write down all of our financial transactions, right? What he didn't touch base on, right? And I'm hoping he can touch base on from a Quranic perspective, right? Because mashallah, he's much more well-versed in that than I am, right? Is that Islam requires each and every single one of us, right? For at least the Muslims here on my audience, Islam requires us to have a will, right? So let's make sure we have a will, right? God forbid something happens to you or your loved ones. We don't want any of your assets going to the government, right? I had to deal with that personally for within my personal family as well as a lot of my clients, right? It's a big headache trying to work through the system when your loved ones don't have a will and they pass away, right? Same thing with a medical directive, right? If you don't have a medical directive, then the government will go ahead and follow their protocol, right? Whatever that may be. So again, I urge every single one of us that's a Muslim here, right? There are companies out there that are giving out free wills, right? Simple wills. If you have a little bit more complicated, reach out to an attorney, right? There are a lot of Muslim attorneys that specialize in this area, right? Reach out to them. Put together a will for you and your family. It's only going to benefit you. I advise almost every single one of my clients, right? Especially when you have certain assets, right? You have IRAs. Make sure you have beneficiary on those IRAs and they're being updated, right? As your children get older, have that conversation, right? I recently lost my father, right? It's a very tough conversation to have as a parent or as a child about these end-of-life discussions and wills, right? So hopefully, again, the elders within our community, I urge all of us to go ahead and have that conversation with our children, saying, hey guys, this is on my will, right? Because why? Islam encourages us to do it. Not encourages, I think it, I don't want to say forces, Imam Malik helped me here. Islam urges that every single one of us has a will.
There is a strong recommendation by Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and Quran itself provides direct guidelines. He said, this is amazing. A general thing is there. You find ideas about how to offer a salat, ideas about how to offer wudu in the Quran, but Prophet explained that. But when it comes to financial matters, Allah directly gives out direct guidelines, and not only to write about it, about the will, about inheritance, about what is halal and haram in financial matters. So these are the areas in which God Almighty has been very particular. So please continue, Thabraize.
So again, all I'm urging all of us here is please be proactive, right? That's it. Next, I mean, I'm done. What I'd like to kind of open it up to here on this presentation, because we don't have our other panelists here with us today, is just, I'm open to taking your questions. Again, I'm here on the request of Sound Vision, on the request of Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid, to go ahead and help out the community, right? That's my entire intention, right? Is to just help out our community, right? So Sadak, I give it back to you to go ahead and open it up for questions. I'm also looking here in terms of our Q&A to see questions. I'll try to go ahead and take some, and please help me out if I've missed them. There's some, Maida is asking, what about G4 visa holders? Again, all I'll say to that is, I assume you're talking about the stimulus payment. Unless you're a green card holder, you're not going to qualify, right? You don't need to do anything special. Your accountant doesn't need to do anything special. The government knows what type of visa you're on. If you qualify, you'll get the rebate, right? I'm in default with my student loan. Will I get the stimulus check? It is our understanding that yes, you will. The stimulus payments are not being used to pay back any federal or state debt. The only thing that it will be used is if you owe child support, right? Hopefully, majority of us are Muslims here, and if we do have child support payments, you should be paying those properly and on time. But if you have back child support payments, that's the only reason that your stimulus payment will be held.
Yeah, I can also take some of these questions as well.
Okay.
Or ask them. Let's see here. Okay. What if you are not a green card holder, but have been working with a work permit?
Again, I'll just reiterate, unless you have a green card, it is our understanding that you won't qualify.
Okay. Next question. If the employer has less than 50 employees, but they are willing to give the 12 weeks paid off, will they still get the reimbursement? Will they
Yes,
have
they will.
special? I'm sorry. Will they have to do something special to claim the reimbursement? If the hourly rate's 2/3 is less than $200, what then?
So again, if your employer is less than 50 employees, and if they pay you, they will get reimbursed. Anyone that pays you will get reimbursed. Any employer that pays you, let me reiterate, any employer that pays you will get reimbursed by the government, right? If you make less than $200 a day, then you get 2/3 of your salary, right? So let's say you make $100 a day, you're only entitled to get $66, right? If they pay you your entire 100, your employer will only get reimbursed up to $66.
Do parents get the $500 for a newborn who was not claimed last year?
Again, unless you file your 2020 tax return, the IRS doesn't know about your newborn that was born in 2019. So if you don't file your 2019 tax returns right now, then you'll get the additional $500 on your 2020 tax return.
Okay. I think you might have already gone over this one previously, but this next question says, please cover small businesses grants / forgivable loans. I have a business. I am the only employee. The rest are subcontractors. Can I benefit from the grant?
So again, I think this particular presentation, we're trying to focus on individuals, but I will go ahead and address that, all right, because it's a small business question. Yes, if you are an employee of your own business, you do qualify. There is the economic injury disaster loan, which is a loan. And there's also the paycheck protection loan, which is forgivable, right? As long you'd have to apply for it with your banking institution. I believe the Council of Islamic Organizations is doing a presentation this Sunday, which solely focuses on PPP. Maybe Imam Malik and the Sound Vision team, you guys can go ahead and forward that on to all of your panelists. I'll be speaking on Sunday strictly on the paycheck protection loan and how it's being unforgiven and what it's used for. So I request you to go ahead and join that session.
Okay. Let me see here. Next question says, Assalamu alaikum. Can you please explain the conditions on the non-immigrant visa? Is that one of the immigrants on any paid type of work visa will qualify for this, irrespective of the type of work visa, L1 or H1 or any type of work visa?
So again,
yeah,
it is my understanding that from what we have read and how we've interpreted the laws, that if you are a non-resident alien, non-green card holder, you don't qualify, right? I see a comment below saying that there's another law firm that's saying H1 qualifies for the stimulus payment. Again, when it comes to the stimulus payment, you don't have to do anything special. Your accountant doesn't do anything special, right? So I'm trying to tell my clients, don't worry about it, right? You're causing undue stress to yourself. If you qualify, just be patient, you'll get it. If you don't qualify, you aren't going to get it, right? There's some, you can't change your immigration status overnight, right? You can't change your income overnight, right? The only reason you should be worried about the stimulus payment is if you made less money in 2018 than you did in 2019, then hold off on filing your 2019 tax returns. Or if you didn't, if you made a lot of money in 2018 and made less income in 2019, then file your 2019 tax returns right away. Outside of that, there's nothing that anyone should do or worry about when it comes to the stimulus payment.
Okay. One person is asking, this is a more business-related question. I hope you don't mind, Brother Thabraize. It says, I'm a business owner who pays my employees cash or with Zelle. Now my shop is shut down like all other non-essential businesses. What category does my business and employees qualify for?
Again, I think that was from Sister Fatima. Sister Fatima, again, I'd urge all the small business owners to go ahead and come back on Sunday for the business presentations again. But again, you won't qualify for the Paycheck Protection Loan because you don't have employees. Your employees may qualify for unemployment. Your employees may qualify for the Paycheck Protection Loan as self-employed individuals.
Okay. One person's asking, what if you filed taxes jointly with your spouse?
You get $2,400 if you qualify.
Okay. All right. I want to take some of the questions from the other chat. I'm seeing some other questions come in. Let me just go ahead and scroll to the top. Okay, one person was asking about L1, H1 visas. I think we already went over that. Let's see here. My husband works for a limo company, and they told all employees to return cars, and they will be called after COVID is over. He has his own corporation company, and he works for a limo company. What are his choices? Can the employer give any benefits to him?
One more time.
I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, so all right. I'm just gonna. It's in the other chat, Brother Thabraize, if you can see that.
I'm trying to go ahead and just find it.
Yeah, it says, my husband works for a limo company. It's how it starts. My husband works for a limo company, and they told all the employees to return their cars, and they will be called back after COVID is over. He has his own corporation, and he works for a limo company. What are his choices? Can the employer give any benefits to him?
Again, I would go ahead. I see that from Sister Sadia. Sister Sadia, again, if your husband has his own company and he was an employee of his own company, then he qualifies for the Paycheck Protection Loan. If not, I'd say apply for unemployment as self-employed.
Okay, let me see here. I am a U.S. citizen. On the side, I do part-time work for a LLC company, and I am alone in the company. Do I get any benefits as a company or from the company?
So again, if you have your own LLC and then you're doing part-time work, then you'd be qualified as self-employed. Then you can go ahead and apply for all the benefits that the self-employed individuals have.
Okay. One person's asking, how can they go about reporting to the IRS about their will?
So again, a will or a medical directive is not reported to any government. It just needs to be notarized, and in certain number of individuals, I believe 3 individuals have to go ahead and witness and have it notarized, and it just becomes official. And then when you need to go ahead and use it, that's when you get to use it.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Is there any age limits for children in case you are staying at home with children? I'm not exactly sure what that's referring to.
It is not. That's referring to the Families and Care Act. If you have a child that's at home, maybe your son or daughter coming back from college, and you need to take care of them, you'd qualify, or a newborn, you'd qualify.
Okay. My wife is a substitute teacher. Can she apply for unemployment? Is there any minimum amount she had to earn in the previous year to qualify for unemployment benefits?
No, she can go ahead and qualify even with anything.
Okay. One person is asking, let's see. Do you have any insight on mortgage forbearance after the forbearance period is over?
I do not, unfortunately. Please work with your bank.
Okay. Right. And then last question. I think this person, I think we might have went over this question already, but just to go over it just one more time. My wife's hours were cut by more than one half, and her boss will not pay her. Can she still apply outside of her employer? Excuse me.
She can. She can go ahead and apply for unemployment benefit. It is our understanding that they would go ahead and qualify for unemployment benefits.
Okay. And I think those were all of the questions. I think there's one more. There's one more in the other chat, in the other Q&A chat. One person's asking, we filed tax jointly. My wife does not work. If both of us will get the $1,200 rebate or only one rebate. He's asking if either both of them will get the rebate or just one of them, even though they both filed jointly, but only one of them works. He works, his wife does not work.
One more time.
So the very last question on the other Q&A chat, it says, a man is asking if that he filed his taxes jointly. However, his wife does not work. So will both of them get the $1,200 rebate or just one of them?
You will get the entire $2,400. Again, the rebate is not dependent on you working. The rebate is dependent on you not making too much money, right? As long as you and your wife combined make $150,000 or less, you will get the entire $2,400. And for those panelists, I just copied and pasted the Sunday seminar with the Illinois Muslim Chamber of Commerce as well as the CIOGC in the chat. So you can go ahead and grab it from there. And then we can request Sound Vision to send it out as well.
Okay. One more person is asking, I apologize if this is repetitive. What can someone who received a 1099 do?
Okay, so if you're a 1099, that means you're an individual that qualifies for self-employed. You can go ahead and apply for the Paycheck Protection Loan. You can apply for unemployment. You can apply for the economic injury, right? So as a self-employed, we consider you a small business. At least that's what the government considers you. So you have a lot of options.
Okay. And I think those are all the questions. Brother Thabraize, thank you so much. Jazakallah khair. We really do appreciate you taking the time to come on here and give this very informative presentation. Thank you so much. Barakallah feekum. Yeah. And Imam Mujahid, is there any other final questions or comments?
Sure. I would like to share a small presentation once Thabraize presentation is over. Thabraize, I tried to search. I mean, most people online are not necessarily from Chicago area. So I was looking at CISGC messaging. I couldn't find the webinar which you are referring to. So if you take out your presentation, I can bring in mine. And please stay for that also. It's just 5 minutes. In the meantime, please put the information in the chat box about the other webinar which you were referring to. I looked around, but somehow I couldn't check that out.
I just put it on and then I also just sent it to your WhatsApp as well, because it looks like CIOGC put it out I know they've been working with me for the past 2 days to kind of confirm in the topics, but it looks like they finalized and shared it this morning with the community.
Okay. All right. So I would share with all of you just a few general points, which what Brother Thabraize was doing is the thing which is needed for us to get our act together in this area. I will share something from a sort of I'm not an accountant, I'm not a lawyer, although my mom always thought I'm a lawyer, the way she felt that I talk. May Allah bless her with the best place in Jannah, and your father, Brother Thabraize, may Allah bless him, best place in Jannah as well. And we need to remember we can leave any time, and it is important advice Brother had that we need to have our accounts together, we need to have our will in place. You know, every year I rewrite the will if there is any update to it, and I did that first thing when the situation started becoming clear to itself, but also share where it is and your password. A lot of our secrets are hiding behind passwords. So you need to have redundancy on that. One of the things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, characteristic of successful people in the Quran, it is in Surah Ash-Shura, and see how important it is that these are the people who have relationship with God Almighty among the successful people, and they establish salat, if not in masjid, in their own home. And here's the thing, wa amruhum shura bainahum, and then they decide their affair in consultation with each other. So while we are at the family situation, all is at home, pay attention to that, and whatever Allah has blessed them, they spend from that. And وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَهُمُ الْبَغْيُ هُمْ يَنْتَصِرُونَ, and when they are wrong, they take a stand. I have seen in the Muslim community, many of us, employers wrong us, or they discriminate because of how we look, or where we come from, or what is our faith. This is America, a better country. In India right now, all countries are trying to help their people, but not China. Uyghur Muslim are still in concentration camp. And India, they have launched a major campaign with the hashtag Corona Jihad, accusing Muslim of spreading this virus around. If there is a Muslim name in some hospital, not serving them. If Muslim are taking food to where poor Muslim, and majority of Muslims in India are poor people, to ghettos and all that, they are beating them up. But in America, we have rights. Taking a position and knowing these rights are important, as brother was sharing with you. And so right of Muslims are important. So while we're at home, let's connect with God Almighty while we're practicing our wudu and washing our hands. And Allah says successful people are those who pray together, regular prayers, so do families, and have a shura in the family about the finances and develop our budget together. And then Allah also says who share what we provided them. I will share a little more about that, but taking a stand. If you're being wronged, your rights are not being given, learn what your rights are. And this was a webinar, and brother has put in the chat, you can go there and learn. That is for Chicago community. But webinar, wherever you are, you can join in. It's not a big deal. But taking a stand, and if somebody is not giving you right, not giving your sick leaves, not giving the money, full salary, which becomes your right because of the Family Act, then you need to contact care wherever you are. If local care doesn't exist, take proper. You don't need to get upset on all that, but to use rights to move forward. Care can file a lawsuit on them if they are denying your rights, and they will be able to not only give you rights, but will compensate you for all the trouble you are going to fight for your right. Most cases in our country, thanks to the sacrifices of people earlier, civil rights movement, African American brothers and sisters who struggled. And because of that struggle, there are more cases in support of Muslim who have been filed when they were discriminated in a employment situation by the federal government than by Muslims themselves. So we have good laws, and take those laws, and that's what Allah is saying on the 5th, that when they are wrong, they take a stand. And it is in Quran chapter 42, verse 38 to 39. Now, at the same time, some people in general in the society have come up with the ways of making money. There are a lot of scams are going around. IRS does not call you. Your bank will not ask you for your password. So be careful about information sharing. I started receiving information, oh, I need this and I need to invest in America. Let's communicate, things like that. These things are old, but happening again. And unfortunately, a group from New York showed lot of dead bodies and started collecting money on that. And the Muslim organization in New York. They investigated them. It's a business which are making a fraudulent statement, and people are donating to a enterprise which was falsifying. So good marketing strategy they came up, taking advantage of the situation. So verify. If somebody is asking you something, they're sitting in New York, asking in Chicago, say which masjid you go to New York, and give us your information so we can contact the masjid there. Or they should contact, and if they are in an urgent situation, they should call 911, not sending out an email to Chicagoland. So investigate, and don't just buy into what they're saying. But at the same time, don't hold your hand. Whatever Allah has blessed you, you need to share with. And I have this model which I like to share with you. Masjid, in some places, Imam is being fired. If that is the situation, you need to reach out and contribute. So whatever money you can, but develop your budget. Don't respond whoever approach you first. It's a critical time. Elections are coming. Our neighbors are in need. So I'm giving you this model. That masjid and dawa and youth, most activities through masjid, at least think of whatever you want to contribute, 20% in that direction. Our people, our brothers and sisters around the world, refugees, 70 million, 71 million refugees, most of them Muslims, think of contributing 20% in that direction. Care for humanity. Right now, what is happening is, I don't know how many of you saw, there was a video about, I think in Pittsburgh, somebody took a drone and took a photo of 2-mile long lane of double lanes of cars, which is moving forward to take charity food supply from that distribution center. What is happening? Because suddenly 10 million people are jobless. Employers have stopped giving them, and state is not experienced that many people applying. So state are slow in providing money, and many of the people live on daily wages. So there is nowhere to go. So they're going to take care of food. And what is happening for food suppliers? They have another problem, because the supermarkets, when it is about to expire, say a week or 2 weeks or 1 month from now, they will give those supplies to food banks. Now, since people have tried to hold food supplies from these supermarkets, they have difficulty supplying the supermarket. So as a result, a source for food banking, Chicago Food Bank, for example, is connected with 500 distribution centers who go to food bank and collect from them and distribute to their neighborhood. Food banks is having lesser level of supply. So taking care of humanity, that's part of Islam. In Islam, right of poor, justice, right of neighbors are common with Muslim and non-Muslim. There is no faith test to these things according to all the Quran and Hadith which we have. Similarly, Muslim organizations who are in communication, coalition, trying to gather information, or coalition like in Chicago and New York and Los Angeles and Michigan, Muslim have organizations which are trying to step forward. They are coalition of Muslim organizations, or coalition of Muslim with other interfaith entity, and elections are coming up. That's where coalition and communication comes in. If we are not participant in those processes, defining our country to become better. So when you're thinking of distribution, according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's order, the successful believers are those who respond to the Lord. Second, successful believers are those who practice regular prayer, so establish small masjid at home. Successful people are those who run their affairs in consultation with each other, so have shura in the family, develop family plan and family budget. Fourth, successful are those who share what God has provided them. Yes, we are all facing a challenge, but whatever our situation is, we need to think, okay, this is our right, not only zakat, but more than that if you could do. And the last thing, what are your rights? Find out your rights and go after getting those rights. And if you have difficulty, engage civil rights organization, engage the government, and use the facilities which are out there. So thank you so much once again for your time coming in. And Brother Sadiq, if you have some announcement about the future webinar or anything, go ahead and make that. And if Brother Thabraize, you have any comment, last thoughts?
I do, Imam Abdul Malik, if I may, one comment again, as everything Imam Abdul Malik just said, know your rights, right? I literally had a client that had called me yesterday who's a physician, and his employer, which is the hospital, is mandating that he cut off his beard because of coronavirus, right? He said he's going to go ahead and think about it, but they said if you don't think about it, you cannot work here anymore. So if you have been put in that situation, right? Again, I'm not going to go ahead and tell you cut your beard, don't cut your beard, right? I'm just saying reach out to the appropriate person to go ahead and get the proper advice, right? If you do not want to cut your beard, that's your right. Again, as a physician, I don't know the health benefits, all that related to coronavirus. All I'm saying is know your rights. That's all I have.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Jazakumullah khairan to the both of you, to Imam Mujahid and to Brother Thabraize. You both gave very informative and very beneficial presentations, and we greatly appreciate you for taking the time to present to all of our viewers. To our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you so much. I do have just one announcement for our webinars that we have taking place tomorrow on Friday. We have our virtual khutbahs taking place, and there's going to be 3 of them, inshallah. The first one will be taking place at 1 p.m. Eastern. 1 p.m. Eastern. That's tomorrow, Friday, April 10th at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central Time, 10 a.m. Pacific, presented by Brother Taha Ghayur, Vice President of Sound Vision Foundation. The second virtual khutbah that will be taking place tomorrow will be at 1 p.m. Central Time. Okay, the first one was 1 p.m. Eastern. Second one is 1 p.m. Central Time. That one will be played 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, presented by Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid, President of Sound Vision Foundation. And the third one, the very last one, will be presented at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. That's our 1 p.m. Pacific Time virtual khutbah, 4 p.m. Eastern, and 3 p.m. Central Time, presented by Dr. Ahmed Murad. So those are 3 Jum'ah virtual khutbahs taking place tomorrow. Hopefully you all tune in, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you so much for all taking the time to come here today and to tune in. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.